Hello, everyone. This is Lady She of Hot Mic with Lady She podcast. I'm excited. We are still moving and shaking in our Men Where Art Thou series 2. Today is going to be good, y'all. I'm telling you, today is going to be good and it's going to be different. And I am so excited for my amazing guest. His name is Archbishop Russell James Davenport of Roosevelt, New York. And he has actually said yes to my invitation. So I feel double blessed today. Hi, Bishop.
How you doing? God bless y'all.
Thanks for coming.
It's my honor to be here. I'm so proud of the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. See, he's starting already, y'all. Let me just start moving because he's gonna get me emotional. Listen, just a little backstory. This man may not even understand how much he means to me. Growing up in Long Island, there's a nice amount of black people in certain areas, but it is predominantly Caucasian situation here. And to go into a job where it's, for one, predominantly men, and then the facility where I work is predominantly, whites, and to have an instructor who is real, and when I say real, I don't mean like all of that. That don't mean you real. Real means honest, can come to you with a stern but caring energy to help you understand who you are, remind you who you are and where you are. And that really pushed me through the academy because I was like, I don't know this thing for me. But because of what he showed us, because of the little nudge that he gave us to remind us that we belong there, I got through that academy. So I just want to publicly thank you for that.
To God be the glory.
Yes. So I'm just realizing, and it was confirmation that you are the first Archbishop coming out of Roosevelt, New York.
Yeah, I'm very proud of Roosevelt and that particular community.
I am too. Shout out to Roosevelt.
There are a lot of pastors there and all great in their own right, but for history's sake, I'm the first black Archbishop, valid Archbishop. And when I say that, it's not an easy thing to become an Archbishop. You have to be acknowledged through different affiliations around the world. There's tracking, you have to be qualified, and so to be blessed to have become that and to hail out of Roosevelt, I'm proud to say that I am the first and the only black Archbishop to come out of Roosevelt, New York.
That's amazing. I love that. So I definitely want you to tap into, you saying valid. Because for one, I shared with him before we started that there's a few reasons I want him to come on. Just because he's amazing as is. But just the atmosphere of where our men are is very troubling for me. So that's what this series is about. And I know that you have so much information and experience that you can share to help men understand there is always someone to speak to. There's always something that can be done about the place that you are in your life. So I would like to, if you would just share just a little bit about, your childhood growing up. What was it like growing up in Roosevelt?
Well, so I came to Roosevelt in 1970.
Okay.
And at that time, my mother was married, stepfather.
Okay.
And we were at George Jefferson's store.
Okay, moving on up.
Yeah, they had a novelty store located in Brooklyn.
Okay.
I was, born in Manhattan, grew up in Brooklyn. And the novelty store did so well, they were able to save enough money and move to Long Island. So
the suburbs, y'all.
To the suburbs.
To the suburbs.
So when I came to Long Island, I came with a Brooklyn mentality, I had a different swagger. And so it took a while to adjust and for the people to adjust to me too. I got in a lot of fights when I was coming up and had a lot of challenges. But I ran into a lot of good people as a youth. I remember a guy by the name of Mr. Eileen. He worked with PAL. He was a basketball coach. Exposed me really to basketball in a large way. A lot of people didn't know that I played. I used to travel playing ball.
Okay.
He was a good mentor. We had a guy named Ricardo Brown who was a coach. Mr. McElwain, a lot of positive black men, which it seems to be a little hard to find today.
Right.
And our young people need good, solid mentorship. Another thing, I got involved in martial arts.
Right.
And I learned in Roosevelt, but what I learned in Roosevelt has taken me around the entire world, teaching with the FBI, training military personnel, training law enforcement. I learned that in Roosevelt.
Right.
So again, I'm very, very proud of Roosevelt.
Excuse me, sorry. So, give us a little background. You kind of tapped into it just now, with the FBI and everything, but give us like a little rundown. I just shared that I met him as an instructor, at my job, but you can kind of start with, what made you go into the service?
I went in the military because at that point it was either go to the military or become a statistic.
Okay.
And I think I was heading the wrong direction. I know I was.
Right.
And the military kind of saved my life. Yeah.
So was this a thing where, because you're from Brooklyn, coming to Long Island, trying to find your way, but there's a little resistance, getting into fights and things, that's where that came from?
A lot of that. Plus, the stepfather wasn't the best stepfather.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Kind of a wicked man.
Okay.
And so my motivation to leave home as soon as I could, despite the fact that I had a mother who played interference all the time, thank God for her. But the military kind of taught me how to be a man and learn to develop a little more discipline.
Right.
But thank God for the martial arts, because the basic training wasn't so hard, because the training I got in Roosevelt was a lot harder than the training that I received in the Army. Yeah.
So let me ask you this, and this is something that, excuse me, sorry. When I think about martial arts, the first thing that comes to mind is discipline. How vital do you think it is for all to learn martial arts?
Well, I think it's really important, because you never know when you have to defend your family. You never know when you have to defend yourself. It's something that is a legacy that you can pass down to your children. I say that we shouldn't have the mentality of wanting to fight, but at least be prepared if we have to fight. It's a sad state to be in if you have to fight and you don't know how. Then you're just a victim. And I think one of the most degrading things for a man that's trying to protect his family is that he can't.
That right there. Ooh.
It affect him mentally.
Yeah.
God forbid, on some greater scale, let's say a guy physically assaulted his wife, and he can't protect his wife, and all he can do is stand there. So I think it's very important that we have physical discipline as well as mental discipline.
Okay. Is that something you think you'll continue to do?
I'm in this for the rest of my life. If I really think about it, I've trained thousands of students over my life, and I started teaching at age 14.
Wow.
And a lot of my students have become champions. I got a few masters out there. I'm a grandmaster, 8th degree black belt in Kisugan karate. I taught, again, law enforcement, and I'm very proud and humble of what God has allowed me to do in giving back. I think it's important to give back.
Right.
If you've obtained any positional title as a black man, I think we have an obligation to give back. Absolutely. Because when God blesses us with these things, it's not just for us. It's for us to be able to open up a door.
That's okay. Absolutely.
So we're supposed to be opening up a door for other people. You mentioned when I was in the academy, I knew how difficult it was because I went through it. I had to fight to get into the academy. And then when I was in the academy, I received opposition from my own kind.
Oh, yeah.
Because I did well.
Right.
So my brothers was jealous. The white guys were jealous because I exceeded them. And, I still felt an obligation to prepare people of color that were coming into that environment, what they were facing. So I didn't play with anybody. I was hard on everybody. And at the end, you know how y'all used to have these celebrations at the graduation? I don't know if any of y'all knew how angry y'all made the other instructors, because at the parties, you all would come over to me.
Right.
You know, you say something like, sing that song, or whatever. They despise that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that I was so great, it's just I try to be real with people.
Right.
And so I think we have an obligation, if we've attained any level of education or position, we have to give it back. So what is each one teach one?
Right. Pay it forward. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And thank you for that. Okay. So now, military training. Would you say? What belt you said?
I'm a 8th degree black belt in Kisugan Karate. I've also studied ninjutsu, goju, taekwondo, did a little grappling, box while I was in the army. Yeah.
Ooh, okay, there's a lot going on right there. So he has so much to give. So now looking at, were you always in church? Did your mother raise you in church?
My mother raised me in church, as the Bible says, train up a child with their own, right? When I became an adult, I dipped away, just like a lot of folk do.
Mm-hmm.
But because it was putting me right, I was able to hear God's voice and come back.
Let me ask you a question. We're gonna move on. You said your mother tried, to intervene when it came to, it was her husband, right? You said?
Right.
Her husband, and you referred to him as a wicked man. Do you think sometimes, or let me ask you this, did you feel some type of resentment at times about your mom not leaving this person?
Well, back then, that generation, that old school generation, they were married. Once they married, they were married for good or for worse. The hard time that I had was being young. I couldn't see her intervention. Because a lot of intervention happened behind the scenes. It wasn't until I was older, had conversations, that she began to tell me things that I realized. It was very frustrating.
Right.
Having someone that is supposed to be acting as a father figure who's trying to destroy you mentally because he wants her for himself.
Wow.
He preferred if I was never there,
Right.
that would have been a perfect world.
Right.
So it was very frustrating, it was very challenging, but thank God I had a lot of uncles that helped me up and, would step in when they had to. But even then, they wouldn't cross the lines of marriage.
Right.
So I know the importance of having someone in your life that's going to mentor you correctly. I know a lot of kids, a lot of adults too, that are messed up because their parents or they grew up in a dysfunctional home and it's just destroyed their outlook. That it's hard for them to see positivity. And today, we have more access to do things wrong.
That's a fact.
Every time you look around, there's some new fad or there's some new group, or it's gothic, or it's slam rock, or it's drill music, or it's hardcore rap talking about my baby mama's a hoe, or it's so many negative things that our young men can gravitate to. And even in sports used to be a physical challenge. It used to, you want to see how good you could be, Now it's about being good, but it's also about getting money so you can get paid, so you can show your blame.
Yeah.
There's no mention of coming back to the community and giving back.
Absolutely.
And that's an aspect that's missing amongst our people. We fight so hard to get it, and once we get it, we don't want to let go.
You're like, peace out, everybody else.
I got mine, now you get yours.
Good luck, everybody. Yeah. No, I've heard people say it's bizarre to me. Why would you not want to be the person that you had access to? Why wouldn't you want to be the help that you needed and received? So, we definitely be staying in prayer about that and doing more to change that. So now, you're now married, have children. As a husband and a father, what did you tell yourself you wanted for your family coming from a household where, and this is not foreign, we know this to be true, especially in the Black community. Back then, you were married and you stayed with your spouse, regardless of what. So what did that tell you? What was the desires for you as a husband and a father coming from a household as such?
Well, as a husband first, I was looking for a wife that was educated, that I could hold a conversation with, someone that had enough courage to correct me if I was wrong, and someone that actually wanted me. I didn't want to be with anybody that didn't want me, you know. And I wanted someone I felt would be good to my children. I have been blessed with 5 children. I lost a son, he died years ago. I got 4 daughters, and from let's just say 37 backwards. You know, I don't know if they want me to tell their ages, but I got 4 daughters, and so that kind of puts a different spin on it for me. It's one thing having a black son, but it's another thing having a black daughter.
So what's the difference?
With women, the business world and society, they look at women a little differently now. Ages ago, women had no place in the business world, and if they were there, they were something to be abused or used. Today, we realize women have fought very hard, they've earned their place, but there's still a mentality that they're lower than their male counterparts. So they're still looked at as sexual figures. So as a father and a man, knowing how men think, raising up a daughter is different. You have to empower them so that they are able to recognize game, so that they don't fall victim to the same things that you did.
Come on, sir.
Hello, men.
Hello, sir.
And as a father, you think about that. You know, you say, okay, I hope my daughters don't meet someone like I was before I was saved, right? And so I try to raise my daughters differently. All my children, I have a saying, they can rehearse it. I said, what are you, young lady? And they repeat, I'm a strong black woman and nothing can hold me back. They all say that, you know, and I try to instill in, I tell them, be wise, don't get tricked, don't ever be position oriented, because sometimes you have to pay a price for a position. Just do the best that you can do and pray. Ask God to show you. Now, as it pertains to raising young boys, young black boys, well, they're black. The world has a perception as it pertains to our black boys, that 1, we don't have a place in this world. Some still believe that. 2, fear. Fear is very big, because whether we know it or not, you'll find that the other side thinks that, or they know that we're better than them in a lot of ways, but they're smart enough to realize that we don't know it about ourselves. And so before we wake up, they set things in place so that as we grow, they can position themselves to always be over us. And so the mentality is grow up, go to school, get an education, get a job, and work for somebody. In most cases, in the business world, it's going to be somebody of a Caucasian position, right? But the mindset should be grow up, get educated, have God in your life, and prepare yourself to be an entrepreneur and be your own business person, make your own money, create legacy. I just recently got involved with purchasing homes, flipping homes, and stuff like that. I have 2 LLCs, I have a CDC, Community Development Corporation, I have a 501(c), I forget what the acronyms is.
You got it right, 3C.
I've run major karate schools, I've done business, and the pension that I receive is just a plus.
Right.
It's not what I rely on. That's just there in case everything else falls. And it's a good feeling to know that regardless of what happens, through the grace of God, I'll be able to take care of myself. And I don't have to listen to anybody else. I don't have to. And it's good to be your own woman. It's good to be your own man, you know, but it takes discipline,
Right.
and dedication. Mm-hmm.
Love that. Love that. All right. So, excuse me. Sorry. All right. Archbishop, how do you get to that place? And how did you know God was calling you to lead His people?
That's hard. I got called when I was 5 years old. And short version is that I was in a room in Brooklyn. My family was all grandmother, mother, aunts, uncles. We were all gathered. They were on the other side of the house. And I was sitting in the living room and this song was played on, I forget what you want to call it now. I forget the old name of the...
Jukebox?
Yeah, jukebox would work. The song was played and the song was called Oh Happy Day.
Okay.
And I remember hearing that song and I saw a light and I started feeling warm all over. Next thing you know, I was just crying. I didn't realize how hard I was crying. Apparently I was screaming or shouting. My whole family ran from the back room, running, thinking I had fallen or something had happened. And my grandmother said, "Boy, what's wrong with you, boy? What you screaming about?" And I said, "That song is so beautiful." And they listened to the song and not one of them said a word to me. They just all turned and walked away and left me crying. Left me there. I'm 5 years old. And I wish that I was able to hold on to whatever that was then. Because after that happened, I think it was just God saying, "I'm approving you." So now you got to go through.
That.
You know, I don't get too deep because my ministry is deliverance. You know, I deal with a lot of stuff that a lot of pastors don't want to talk about. But as I got older, I remember, let me shorten this. I went to a church chasing a girl.
Okay.
I saw this girl, she was nice, you know, like called and said, "Bad mama jamma," right? All the curves a man like.
Curves.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm saved now. Let me back up. And
how old were you then?
I was in my 20s.
Okay.
And I knew her from the neighborhood in Roosevelt. And I built enough courage to talk to her. But she listened and she said, "So you want to take me on a date?" I said, "Yeah." She says, "Okay, meet me at church." I wasn't scared. I grew up in church. So you ain't say nothing. So that day I went to the church. I woke up late. And I said, "I'm not going." And some said, "Go." I said, "It's not worth it just to chase a girl." So anyway, I went. And I got there, I couldn't find any parking. It was for blocks, it was Zion.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so when I finally got parking, I had to walk back and I had to walk up all them steps. When I got there, the door was locked. And I said, I'm going to turn around. So I turned around and walk away. The doors flew open. They said, "Come on in." So I came in. Happened to be a preacher there from out of town. And I remember sitting there. Service spirit was so high. And I remember looking around, started breathing hard, seeing what's going on. And I felt my body moving, and I held on the chair, and I started saying, "Oh no, this can't be, not me." I remember seeing people growing up, dancing in the spirit, moving. I said, "Oh no, that won't be me. That ain't happening." I'm holding on, and I lost my grip. Next thing I know, I'm up dancing, I'm up shouting, and God is all right, and the whole church went on fire with me, and that was the beginning.
Ooh, I felt that.
As it relates to knowing that I was called to lead, I used to always wonder. I couldn't understand why a 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid, I had adults coming to, asking me questions. And somewhere along the line between 15 and 18, I realized that there was something for me to do. I just didn't know how to go about it.
That right there was real. You saying, "I knew, but didn't know how to go about it." Do you think that part right there is a lot of the issues that we have in our community? People know, or they had an experience where they understand, I'm supposed to be more than what I am, but I don't know what to do next. Excuse me, I don't know what to do next. How what do we do about that?
It takes someone to be able to recognize goodness and greatness in you and to help you see the greatness in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible talks about a story of the prophet Samuel.
Mm.
All right, he had a mentor by the name of Eli,
Mm-hmm.
and God was calling Samuel in the middle of the night, and God would say Samuel, and then Samuel would wake up and run to Eli, thinking that Eli called him, and Eli would say, "I ain't call you, boy. Go back to bed."
Yeah.
So that happened like 3 times. So finally, Eli, who had experience and who was wise enough to realize that God had a plan for this young man's life, he said, the next time you hear that voice, just say, "Here I am, Lord.
Yes.
I'm listening." And so we need an Eli, not some of the other stuff attached to Eli, but we need that type of Eli that will be able to recognize goodness in us and that there's more to us and be willing to dedicate time to help us get. Because you can't be a mentor, you can't be someone to inspire people and think that it's going to happen quickly.
Right.
You have to be there long enough to help shape a mind, change a heart, strengthen a heart. You know, let people see by example. That's another thing.
Right.
You got to be demonstrative.
Woo.
People got to be able to look at you and say, okay, that's real.
Right. Love that. And I love, and we're not going to be on this long, but I love that you said my church is a deliverance church. Can you just kind of, I know what that is, but can you just kind of give us like a snippet of what that looks like to a community that is going through hurt, that is going through destruction, self-destruction, that is going through dealing with racism, dealing with being ostracized just by the color of their skin? You know, what is that like for a church like yours in reference to the work that has to be done?
All right, the world has people believing that drug addiction, abuse, alcoholism, things like that are situations, or is a mental mindset, or is something that comes from stress, when in reality it's demonic. It's due to spiritual manipulation. And until we realize the real source that's behind these issues, we will forever be bound by it. Now, through the power of God, people are able to be what we use as a term, delivered from that bondage. Alcoholism is a demonic spirit. And the funny thing about it, if you go to any store, they make it plain. What do they say on their signs? Wine and spirits. Yep. It's right there in front of everybody. Yep. Nobody questions that. You know, nobody questions that. I could go on. But what I would say is, through the power of God, people are being released from these demonic attacks. For example, too many of our churches, people go into church one way and leave the same way they came. There should be some evidence that the real power of God exists in that church. He's still healing, he's still delivering people. I have films, I have testimony after testimony of what God has done. And so a lot of pastors don't talk about deliverance because they don't want to approach the issues of demons. They want to preach within their 4 walls, sing, clap, go home, right? But there's so much more to it, so much more. And until our people realize that we are wrestling not against flesh and blood. So then if we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, who is it? Well, the Bible says principalities and powers, spiritual wickedness in high places.
Absolutely.
And so that is one of the most prominent scriptures in the New Testament to let us know that we are engaged in a spiritual warfare. And so, in short, deliverance in my ministry is just about setting those who are captive to sin, captive to demonic influence, and setting them free.
Right, set them free. Amen. So now, we've been seeing an influx, unfortunately, of black men committing suicide. And not just by happenstance, actually, like, on social media. Like, making it known, like, I've been in pain, this is not working out, I don't want to be here anymore, and literally taking not just their lives at times, the spouses' lives, and their children's lives before they take their own lives. What is happening, and what can we do to help?
Well, for one side, I think it's due to bureaucracy. When a black man has an issue, nobody's listening. When there's a guilty party, which may eventually lead us to that burglary situation. When there's a guilty party, instead of that black man being able to address the guilty party, there's a lot of doors that are put to protect the guilty party.
Right.
So it becomes very frustrating to the person who knows that they're innocent and they've done nothing wrong, and all they want is justice. But every time they try to get justice, a new door is thrown in front of them. And so it gets hurtful, especially if it affects more than themselves.
Right.
And so then they're compelled to want to do something. And some people handle that in a positive way. Some become advocates. Some go to school to get educated and learn how to get past the bureaucracy. And then there are those that cannot handle it.
Right.
And so then they try to take matters into their own hands and then make matters worse. As it relates to suicide, again, in the spiritual realm, we see that suicide is a demonic force, and it's not strong enough to harm any one person by itself.
Right.
What happens is, first, a person is afflicted with maybe depression, another demonic spirit. Then depression calls for help. Depression calls for withdrawal. Withdrawal will then call on shame. Shame will then call on guilt. Guilt will call on something else. The next spirit will call on the next. So after all of these demonic spirits have attacked that one person and gotten that person to such a weak state, then they'll say, okay, suicide, he's ready. You come on in. And in a demonic way, it motivates our people towards taking their lives. The uphill battle for our people has been so intense that it's easy to go the other way. Not everybody has it within them to fight that good fight, which again is why it's important to have somebody strong to stand with you. You know, somebody to speak something positive in your ear while others are trying to tear you down. Somebody say that it's going to be all right when you can't tell that it's going to be all right. I've been there, and I've never told anybody this. I've been there where there was times when I was younger that I thought about taking my life. I remember there was a point in time I was cutting myself, and somebody inspired me. Somebody was talking to somebody, embraced me, and I realized that that wasn't the thing to do. So one of the main reasons that I position myself to help people is because somebody helped me.
Yes.
And I do believe that we have an obligation to give back. Suicide is a crime of passion. It's a crime of emotion. Oftentimes, through demonic influences, that person will hear something like this: kill yourself. Then they'll learn. Kill yourself. They'll be sorry. Yeah, then you'll get them. They'll miss you when you're gone. You know, which, if you think about it, makes no sense.
Right.
You know, you're dead, and the very things that this demonic voice was telling you, some of it may be true, but what does it benefit? And so we constantly need positive reinforcement because there's so much negativity.
Absolutely.
Who's going to do it?
Right.
The Bible says in Genesis chapter 4, verse 9, am I my brother's keeper? Our response should be, yes, we are. Yes, we are. Especially during times of shame, because we were Cain and killed Abel at that time. And and he was questioned by God. But we need somebody to stand in when we're not able to stand for ourselves.
Right.
Who's going to do it?
Who's going to do it? Yeah. So now, whew, you being an archbishop, a black man, and with all your experience and credentials and all you poured into your communities, you experienced something that checked all of that in your home. What was that about? And how do you come to after this experience?
All right, so let's see. The Archbishop, Bachelor of Science, 2 doctorates, law enforcement, 15 New York State certifications, FBI certifications. When it all boiled down to it, I was just another black man. I was gonna use another word, but I'm not gonna use it. So at 4:30 in the morning, a white male tried to break into my home. I heard the noise. I was asleep, and I went to the front of my house and I saw somebody across the yard. They had on a hoodie. Had no idea who it was. I got dressed real quick. Noticed they went around the side of my house, and I looked out the window. The person was trying to get in the back window and climb in through the back window or another window where my daughter and my granddaughter was sleeping. And so at that point in time, I grabbed my weapon and I ran outside and I did all the law enforcement stuff. What are you doing here? Get on the ground, blah, 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 blah. You know, get on the ground, put your hands up, so and so. The person, it was pitch black dark, no lights in my yard at the time. He wouldn't listen. So he kept coming forward. And I'm going, in my mind, I'm going, all right, I'm not gonna have to shoot this guy, but then I can't just shoot him if he doesn't have a weapon. You know, all this stuff is going on in my mind, you know, and I'm not gonna miss. But so I keep telling him, get on the ground, he doesn't do it. He comes close and he tries to take a swing at me. You know, so I duck, but when I duck, there were branches and acorns on the ground. My foot slid out from underneath me, I hit the ground on one knee, and my weapon fired into the dirt.
Ow.
When he heard the gunfire, he froze. I grabbed him and restrained him, and restrained him strongly. And I had my wife call the police. When the police came, they took me inside and they took him out. Turned out that he was a white man. They released him. They released the white male who I caught breaking into my home. And they came and they arrested me, pristine law enforcement record. They arrested me for an unlawful discharge in the ground. I later found out, I believe that this person was related to a particular person in the police department. I'm still verifying that. I went into, and I want to tell this for all my co-workers, I went to police headquarters. I went to, what's that, 3rd precinct, 1st precinct? I went to 3rd precinct. Some of the very same people that I work with turned their back. So the same people that I trained.
I was gonna say that, people you trained.
Turned their back. I said, When I left there, went to police, while I was there, a lieutenant said to me, look, I don't know why you're worried. He says, they're probably gonna let you go. It's just gonna be a misdemeanor. You're gonna be fine. And in my mind, I'm going, if that was you who had a pristine career and someone's gonna charge you with a misdemeanor, would you be okay with it? So anyway, I got transferred from there and I stayed at police headquarters overnight. When I got police headquarters, they left the handcuffs on me for a long time. Now they knew who I was, to the point where it was digging in my skin. And I couldn't understand why they wouldn't take the cuffs off, right? Now my whole spirit has changed.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how and why. Eventually they came, they took the cuffs off. I will give them credit. From that point on, they tried to take care of me the entire night. But I knew something was wrong because They tried to put people in a cell with me. And within 5 minutes, people wanted to get out. I didn't say anything to them, I just looked at them. I had entered a real dark place. I'm thinking that I'm gonna have to kill somebody. Because when you're law enforcement, you get incarcerated, you're a public enemy number one. Every inmate is out for you.
I felt that.
So in my mind, I'm going, the first person that says something, I guess I'm committed, I'm going to take them out. It wasn't until I got to Hempstead District Court, downstairs, where I seen more officers that I trained. With the exception of one or two, all the officers were like, we can't believe this happened. This could have happened to any one of us. They treated me well. Then officers started coming from everywhere to see me.
To see you.
When I got upstairs in the courtroom, within 24 hours, there's about 300 people in the courtroom supporting me. It was the support that the officers gave me at Hempstead District Court and the people that snapped me out, that brought me back, because I was at such a state that I didn't even want to live. And I never had a chance to tell the officers what they did, how they changed my life just by showing me a little support, and the community leaders and everybody that came out that supported me. They changed my life. Fast forward, try to make it short. For 2 years, no, I shouldn't say for 2 years. Yeah, okay, for 2 years, I went back and forth to court. I went to grand jury. I beat them in grand jury. It was supposed to be thrown out. You remember I taught courtroom testimony.
Right.
By the grace of God, I was able to destroy the DA. They didn't have facts, they didn't have information. So instead of them leaving it there, they were trying to give me 10 years in jail. They pushed it down to misdemeanor court. When they pushed it down to misdemeanor court, after about dealing with this for a year and a half, they decided that they wanted to change my original charge, which you can't do. So they spoke to the judge, and the judge said, you can't do that. And they argued with the judge. And the judge said, this is my court, you don't tell me what to do.
Oh.
And they said, well, we're gonna do it. He said, okay, I'll tell you what, you wanna file no charges? Put in your petition. So they put in the petition. He says, okay, we'll accept the new charges. All the old charges against them have been dropped and dismissed. And then he says, you do realize it's up to me to determine what happens with these new charges, right? And I said, sure. He says, guess what? Now all the new charges are dropped too. This man did nothing.
Whew.
And so, yeah, I had after I won, after I was cleared, I had to get my property back. You know what I mean? Even though I was cleared in court, even though everything was destroyed and expunged, I couldn't get my property back. I had to fight for that.
Right.
So after 5 years, after 5 years of fighting, I got all my stuff back, reinstated.
Right.
But because I was a black person, I went through all of that. And so what does that say? If somebody who was operating in my position that was known by everybody, if I had to go through that, what about our young black boys that don't have credentials behind them? And so I think it's important to, as a matter of fact, I'm putting something together to teach our young people how to deal with law enforcement when they're stopped in the street. How to respond, what not to say, where to put your hands, so that you may not like it, but at least you can go home at the end of the day and fight another way. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Same with our women.
Yeah.
Our young women seem to be worse than our young black boys when it comes to those situations. They're loud, they're screaming, who do you think you are? You can't do that. I'm like, do you think that these officers gonna take it easy on you because you're a young girl? They will slam you, they will punch you, they will kick you. Even though you're a girl, they will hit you in the belly. Some, let me clarify that, not all. There's not, the officers all the officers are not bad. There are a lot of great officers out there, great white officers, great black officers. But there are some, a select few, that will harm you. And so it's important that we know how to speak when we encounter these situations.
Thank you for, bringing it up, because like you said, if these young men are being stopped, or this could happen to a so-called regular civilian or person, and they don't have the funds or the support, now they have this charge, and now they're bitter. So now they're not just carrying, I know, waking up just being black. Now they're carrying something that they know they did nothing wrong. So how does that project to the world now? How does that show up in your marriage now? How does that show up as you as a father now? You're different now because of this experience. But then all people see is he's always angry, or you don't want to make him mad. Do you understand? And it's undeserving. Like, you don't deserve to have to carry that when you've done nothing wrong but be black. So what can we do when it comes to, let me ask you this. I make t-shirts that says Jesus in therapy. What do you think about, what do you feel about therapy?
Well, I am currently a clinical chaplain.
Okay.
I being trained in clinical diagnosis to be a diagnostician. We help the patients to recognize their issues.
Okay.
You can't deal with your issues until it's put in your face. The Bible says, let a man examine himself.
Yes.
You have to be able to look at it with clear eyes. Again, the Bible says, he who keeps his mind stayed on Jesus, that he will keep him in perfect peace. If we learn to keep our mind God-centered, you'll be amazed at how much peace you will be in. When the enemy comes upon us like a flood, it is such a comfort to realize that God is right there to keep our mind intact and our heart intact, and to prevent us from doing something that we would regret. Again, anger, but sin not, right? I think counseling, spiritual counseling, is extremely, extremely important to the soul of man. Psychology is different. It deals with isms and schisms and ologies, the study of this, the study of that, the mind. And in some cases, you leave a session worse off than you did. In some cases, there's psychologists that are actually able to help. But the bottom line is that people need a place to vent. Right. How the Christians handle it, there's another ology that we practice.
Another ology?
We practice neology.
Okay.
We kneel down and we pray and we speak to God. We release that.
Face.
Right. We release that. We don't hold, we try not to hold on to that. And it helps us make it through another day. But I do feel that it is important for God's people, our young black men and women, to be able to have someone that they trust, that won't take their information and put it out on blast, to be able to share.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, because I think, and what I've seen is a lot of times our men have issues with sharing because they don't want it thrown back in their face. And that's a lot of times they will bring up even us, the black woman. Like, I love my lady, but she doesn't get it. And I don't want to have an issue or a moment where we're talking and then it's thrown in my face. I don't want to feel that. So,
I'm so glad that's not an issue that we're talking about today.
I'm just being real. One thing we're going to do is we're going to call it a spade. And this also comes from, a lot of times the upbringing. Sometimes the women don't really know their place because Sometimes the father was out of place or absent. So now it's the mom taking on these things, and she's doing the best she knows how. She's figuring things out. So this is what's passed on to her daughter, who now has a relationship, or who's procreating and, trying to be civil out in the world. We bring this energy that we're not equipped, or we don't have the tools, or we don't even have the mental capacity to understand that our words are so damaging to the black man. Like, what we say to you really resonates in your spirit, and it is what you portray to the world. When we tell you you are king, you are amazing, you are these wonderful things, you're gonna carry that. The same way we tell you you ain't, you know what, and you ain't this and you ain't that, and you're a bad dad, and you carry these things because of our words. Our words create. All of our words create, for that much. But it's something about the woman and what we pour into our men. They say a son is who the mother makes him. And I'll tell you, that thing gets me every time, just thinking about how powerful that is. Like, we need to really understand, first of all, keeping God center in our families is the most important thing. But understanding what we bring to the table, our growing situation, Big Mama, what Big Mama showed you with Pop, and all those different things, it shapes and molds you into the person that you are, which is a very imperfect person. So you're imperfect people trying to figure things out in a world that has hate for you. So we carry so much as black people, and I really think we need to give ourselves grace and give each other grace, understanding that. If that makes any sense.
It does. I don't know that women realize black women realize the amount of power and influence that they have over their men.
Some of us know.
It's more than a physical influence, if you follow me, right? A kind word of encouragement to a man that's struggling does a lot for his ego. Black men, some white men too, are brought up with the mentality or mindset of they have to go out, make the money, provide for the household. And so when things don't fall in place just the way that they were taught to believe, it really discourages them. But having a woman, a queen, to be there to continue to inspire that person, it makes such an impact on the man. It gives them purpose. It gives them the inspiration to continue to do, strive, be better, and work, as opposed to saying, look at you. You can't hold down a job, when that same person was out looking for jobs, got a job, but maybe he didn't have the education that they were really looking for, and they decided that they were going to choose somebody else over him. He lost the position. He didn't want to lose it, but he lost. Go to another job. Maybe some other situation happened that wasn't his fault. But instead of you being supportive, you put that man down, and it destroys him. And then it also begins to change his thought process as it relates to women. Now, I'm gonna say something that is not gonna necessarily be favorable, and it's going to cover a lot of topics. And some people will agree or disagree, and I might lose my brother card, but I'm gonna tell you, there's a lot of black men, and you can tell me from a woman's perspective, there's a lot of black men that would prefer dealing with white women. And the reason is because in our circles per se, it seems that white women will inspire, they will be there, they will do every and anything to support that man. They don't give him a whole lot of grief. I'm Archbishop, and I'm gonna say it anyway, because it's about being real.
Right.
And they're freaks in the bedroom. All right? Some of our black sisters, I can't do that, I can't do this, or I'm nagging about this and that, or I can't inspire you, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes the black men just get tired of all of that, just as black women do. They work, they're trying to strive, they're trying to be. And all the man can see in them is that there's someone to go to bed with when they're much more than that.
Right.
And so there has to be a change in our thinking process to realize that each one of us possess greatness and that we are to be a helpmeet to each other. Even the Bible says that God created a woman to be a helpmeet unto man. Man has an obligation to treat that helpmeet with love and respect. And so I think it's really degrading and discouraging when a black man has a woman that's constantly putting him down, and vice versa.
Right.
And I have zero respect, we ain't talk about this, for black men to put their hands on women. All right, would you do that to your mother? You know, so, but it is a mentality, that dysfunctional home. If you grew up in a home where dad was beating on mama, then hurt people.
Right.
And so, yeah, there definitely has to be a change. And so one of the things I'm looking to do, I meet with men, a group of men once a month.
Okay.
And we talk about every and anything. We keep it plain. And we try to build each other up. We pray, we eat, we just put it out there. I give you an example. There's a group of about 20 of us, and there was a young man, he had to be about 20 years old. And he was upset, and he was expressing to us that he was never going to deal with women again for the rest of his life. We said, well, brother, what's going on? He said, well, I was dealing with this woman, she was like 40 years old, and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And I'll never deal with another woman again. You know what we did? We looked at her. We said, yo, shut up. Shut up, man. You 20 years old,
Right.
you never. And then we let it, we sat into him, and when we were finished, he was a different person. You just hurt right now, boy.
Right.
You know, so we keep it real. And I noticed that there's a lot of women groups that will get together and will share, and they're made the better for that. But men allow pride to get in the way. I'm telling any of the brothers that are watching, you need to have a place with a safe place where you can talk and you can express. And so I think that's important. If it's not in your church, then maybe it's in your lodge. I don't know, or maybe it's amongst your own personal friends. But there has to be a place where you can express and release before you explode.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's very important.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. So please, first of all, let the people know where your church is located and all the other things that you are doing. I would like for them to understand what you've done thus far and what is to come. You definitely mentioned earlier, excuse me, that's a tooth in my throat. You mentioned earlier that you're putting something together, assisting with when young men get stopped, when young women get stopped. I think that is excellent and absolutely much needed. But you mentioned the group as well. How do people get in contact with you, to get involved, your church and everything like that?
Okay. Well, if anyone would like to reach out, you can reach out at 516-318-2257. That is actually a direct line. I'll be glad to talk to you, give you information about the church. Church is located right now in Cambria Heights. Pray for me because there's 2 situations in Roosevelt that I'm looking at acquiring property. And so if the Lord says so, then that is my next destination, my last destination.
Let's go.
But we're currently located in Cambria Heights. That's 223-17 Linden Boulevard. Name of the church is the Arrow of Yahweh International Ministries. And we're a congregation of mixed people. I love it. We got black, white, Filipinos, Jamaicans, Asian, African, everything you can imagine, all worshiping God.
Love that.
And so it's incredible. I'm teaching the martial art program there. Our men's program is functioning there as well in terms of being able to come together and discuss. And there's a few other projects that I'm working on that, as they develop. I'm hoping to put together an entrepreneurship program. We're getting ready to launch an intensive program, like a 6-month program for ministry. If anyone takes this program and passes, it's going to be intensive, then I will license them as a minister.
Wow.
The work is going to be extensive. That's not ordination.
Okay.
That's licensed to minister. And so that's just some of the things that we're doing. We also have a group called DOG. It's a women's group, dedicated, anointed women of God, something like that. And they meet every month, and they just do the same things we were talking about. They discuss. It's wonderful. We got youth programs. So that's in short, what I'm doing in terms of what I've done. I've hosted radio programs, used to be at WTHE for about 3 or 4 years, and I've done some movies here and there, extras, Malcolm X. I just did a commercial for Reebok in 2021. I'm still waiting for it to come out, Turf Kings.
Okay.
And I've done some Japanese TV, and so I'm living. I haven't given up yet.
Right.
We're still being active. Yeah.
Love it. Stay active, cause y'all wouldn't even believe his age. I'm not gonna let him do it, but yeah.
No, we ain't gonna do it.
We're not gonna do it, but listen, this is like goals for me right now. So, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. This was I just love God. I just love how He is intentional with everything He does. My prayer is that someone or persons see this and that they change their thinking. As they say, change your mind, change your life. Excuse me. When it comes to whether you're of a different race, I hope that you can now see us in a different lens. And if you are a Black man, you can see yourself with a different lens after seeing this interview. I pray that all that you touch, God just blesses. Is there anything you want to leave the people with? Quote. Where's your book? Where's your book?
Haven't started it yet.
So a book is coming. I just want to ask you. That's what that was. A book is coming.
It actually is.
Awesome.
Don't live to please anybody. Live to please God. Live to please God. As it relates to your other brethren, because they're yet your brothers, we all come from the same place. If you knew what I knew. As it relates to your Caucasian brothers and sisters, don't live to please them. Be the best you that you can be. If they choose to see your goodness, your greatness, that's up to them. They should not be the ones that dictate your future. So you be the best that you can be and trust God, and He will direct your path. That's the best thing that I can tell you. And this comes from someone who's supposed to be rough and tough, and at one point the ladies, man, and everything you could imagine. And I'm telling you, the best thing that has ever happened to me in my life is God.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there.
Love that. Listen, Archbishop Russell James Davenport of Roosevelt, New York. Thank you so much for blessing us as part of the Men Wear Our Style series. Make sure you guys subscribe to Hot Mic with Lady She podcast on YouTube, soon to be on Apple Podcasts and all the other platforms. We gotta put this out there, y'all. We gotta put this out there and let the world see. But listen, thank you so much to all those who have supported thus far. Make sure you stay tuned for other amazing guests, such as the Bishop here, the Archbishop here, and we thank you. Make sure you reach out to him. He has so much to offer you. This is not just words because I know him. This is what it is. So if you feel a nudge in your spirit, in reference to anything that he spoke about, please, sir, please, man, make sure you reach out to him. That's his direct line, his words. So listen, don't let this be for naught. Don't let this be for naught. God is speaking. Let him speak, and you make the move for yourself, for your life, okay? God bless, and see you next time.